Hello everybody and welcome back. We are now officially into our 10th video. We've now broken double digits. If only Barack Obama's IQ would do the same. Now, I apologize, I'm a little late uploading this one today, insofar as I had to shave. The hair on my legs was just getting unruly. Now, as promised last time, we're going to start off with the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, which reads as follows. Quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. End quote. Now this immediately gives rise to several questions, like what is an establishment of religion? Is freedom of speech different from the freedom of speech? Are there limits on the freedom of the press, or is it absolute? Although the history of the Bill of Rights has been provided already, more or less, we can only answer these questions that we've just posed once we establish the background of Amendment 1 itself. Now, one of the powers that the states had enjoyed long before the creation of the federal government was the power to manage its internal religious affairs. Additionally, several states even had official established religions. For instance, the Anglican Church was the established church of my home state of New York. It was completely normal to see a state establish an official church and then support it through taxation and other public funds. It also is a matter of historical fact that at the time of the founders, America was, and remains so to this day, a religiously pluralist society. That is, no one sect reigned supreme to the detriment of others. It would not only be highly unlikely, but arguably impossible to pass a federal amendment which would favor one religious sect over another, much less do so and maintain a union of any kind. With these things in mind, one may now proceed to examine the first half of Amendment 1, that is, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Obviously, the first term that should grab our attention is an establishment of religion. Now, Blexton, again, is of great assistance on this matter. In the fourth volume of his commentaries, he wrote that an establishment of religion is a legal term of art which is synonymous with, quote, the established church, end quote. Various offenses against the established church included reviling the ordinances of the church, nonconformity, religious impostors, etc. With this understood, one must note that establishments of religion deal with actual institutions of religion. And that being said, all that this half of the amendment was intended to do was to make sure that the federal government would not restrict freedom of worship. And it specifically prohibited Congress, but not the states, from establishing an official government-supported church. Now, for the first part of Amendment 1, it is equally important to note what it does not say. The amendment does not impair Congress from legislating on religious matters, just on actual religious institutions. The First Amendment does not construct a separation of church and state, as many claim nowadays. The claim that there is indeed a separation of church and state, which is so often falsely attributed to our Constitution, actually is based on a letter written by Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptists in Connecticut, who voiced a concern for their ability to practice their religion uninhibited by the new government. A portion of that letter, which was addressed to Nehemiah Dodge, Ephraim Robbins, Stephen S. Nelson, and dated January 1st of 1802, reads as follows. Quote, believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only, and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Adhering to this expression of the supreme will of the nation in behalf of the rights of conscience, I shall see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights, convinced he has no natural right in opposition to his social duties. End quote. Now it becomes clear upon studying the context of that phrase in question, the separation of church and state, that Jefferson saw the First Amendment as protecting religion from the state and not vice versa. Now, to support further the notion that the federal government was not required to be completely indifferent toward religion of any kind, perhaps some more evidence is in order. Another historical occurrence that supports this proposition is the government's treatment of the Order of St. Ursula at New Orleans in the first decade of the 1800s. The nuns there wrote to the president, again Jefferson, expressing their concern that their order's property and political protection might vanish or at least be endangered under the United States government, which had acquired the entire Louisiana territory from France in 1803. To this, Jefferson wrote back in response, addressing his letter to Mother Superior Therese de Saint Xavier and the nuns of the Order of St. Ursula, dated 15th of May, 1804. It reads in its entirety, and I quote, "I have received, holy sisters, the letter you have written me wherein you express anxiety for the property vested in your institution by the former governments of Louisiana. The principles of the Constitution and government of the United States are a sure guarantee to you that it will be preserved to you sacred and inviolate, and that your institution will be permitted to govern itself according to its own voluntary rules, without interference from civil authority. Whatever diversity of shade may appear in the religious opinions of our fellow citizens, the charitable objects of your institution cannot be indifferent to any, and its furtherance of the wholesome purpose of society, by training up its younger members in the way they should go, cannot fail to ensure it the patronage of the government it is under. Be assured it will meet all the protection which my office can give it." End quote. Now, once again, what conclusion can we draw except that the federal government was supposed to take a hands-off approach to religious institutions? Now, to be fair, political and historical research that draws too heavily upon one source cannot be considered reliable. We just examined two instances where Jefferson was consulted as to what should be done, and we can't really rely on him solely for guidance because, after all, when those letters were written, he was the nation's chief executive officer and not a member of Congress. Also, he was not a member to the 1787 Constitutional Convention, a member of Congress in 1789. He was not a member of any state legislature or ratifying convention that helped to pass the First Amendment. He was actually serving as the U.S. Minister to France at that time, so his view should not be considered definitive. It would behoove us to look to acts that Congress itself undertook. To start, it is very telling that early sessions of Congress began with an opening prayer, and while this is in itself no actual legislative act, it does give us a hint as to the general idea that the founders had concerning religious practices in government. But even more revealing are the acts that Congress legislated concerning Christianity and its spread among the various Indian tribes. For instance, to quote John Aidsmoe again, he said that, quote, "In 1803, Congress passed a treaty with the Kaskaskia Indians, which provided, among other things, a stipend of $100 annually for 7 years from the federal treasury for the support of a Catholic priest to minister to the Kaskaskia Indians. And two similar treaties were enacted during Jefferson's administration, one with the Wyandotte Indians and other tribes in 1806, and one with the Cherokees in 1807. In 1787, another act of Congress ordained special lands quote, for the sole use of Christian Indians, end quote, and reserved lands for the Moravian Brethren, quote, for civilizing the Indians and promoting Christianity, end quote. This was renewed in 1796, notice a time after the First Amendment was passed, with a new law entitled An Act Regulating the Grants of Land Appropriated for Military Services and for the Society of the United Brethren for Propagating the Gospel Among the Heathen, end quote. At this point, it becomes clear that religion and government were not relegated to their respective spheres and not supposed to have anything to do with each other or be isolated from each other's influence. Rather, they were supposed to assist each other and act in solidarity. At last, one may continue to the second half of Amendment 1, which continues that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Now, because, especially concerning the freedom of speech, and how it's become relatively perverted today, I think that will warrant its own video, and thus, at this point, I'm going to hold off until next time to dive into that. So I hope you'll join me next time for our 11th video, where we will finish up Amendment 1 and then eventually, after that, move on to Amendment 2 and the definition of the militia. But until then, I hope that you've all appreciated what we've done so far. And I can say at this point, good night, God bless, and hope you all take care until next time. All right, bye-bye.